Episode 8 of Star Wars Andor. Mwah, it is, like all the other episodes, par for the course, just amazing across all components. I love it. Today is the review time. So, I just finished watching it this morning. We're going to dive in. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renfield, the bearded dwarven princess. Here is your fair warning. This is a spoiler heavy, spoiler laden episode. I don't do spoiler free here. So, if you don't want anything spoiled, now's the time to back out. But if you're here to continue onwards and get all the juicy details about this episode, welcome. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to never miss an update as I continue to review this show and others. And don't forget to support. Two simple ways right out the gate. You can do a membership option. There's 3 of them down there. You can also do a one-off super thanks if you don't want to do the monthly sub. That being said, let's just get into my show notes here because they are a little intensive this week because there was a lot to go over. And honestly, this is for me, I've given pretty much every one of these episodes a flawless rating, but I think this episode was as good for me as the heist episode was. There's not as much action as the heist episode, but we got a ton of storyline and we're setting up the next big story arc here, which is great across the board. So we start off here. Andor's being shuffled off to prison, we think, anyway, in these prison-like shuttles. And there's a back and forth sequence here at the very beginning of the episode to sort of heighten the pacing and let us know that lots of stuff is going to be happening in this episode. So we're with Andor for a brief moment, then we're back to Cyril shifting data, and then here come these Imperials who want to interrogate him. Then we're back to Andor, and he's tossing his shoes on the floor and getting, magneted to the wall in this shuttle as it goes off planet, and his face is just full panic mode. Cyril's also panicking in a white room, and here comes Dedra. She wants to know more about why he's apparently been submitting nonstop, as she calls them, false reports about Cassian Andor because he's obsessed. He sent 6 inquiries in the past month. Well, 5, not including the one from this morning, which is 6. And I thought that there might be a moment here where they were going to click together. Um, uh, Still not sure what's going to happen with them as we get later into the episode, but stay tuned. She wants him to look at Blevins' report, his captain, the guy who was there before, because he signed this report, forced Cyril to sign it, and she wants to know what's missing from the report, so she wants him to see it within the cell. Then we're back to whatever planet, whatever fresh hell this is going to be for Andor. They're coming into a planet. We see I thought it was going to be a water treatment facility or some type of mining operation, but it turns out that it is a factory, and they are here to be working. We're going to get to that here in a minute. Now we're back. Lots of scenes changing here in the early parts of the episode because they're setting things up. Dedra is going over the Starpath unit in front of the entire bureau. We've got Wolf Yularen again, who's overseeing Partagas. Clone Wars cameos continuing. And this speech is brilliant. She basically suspects all the right things about Luthen, who they're calling Axis now because of his centrality to the plot to steal things and set up a rebellion. And she basically is pitching for a big budget and a specialized team to hunt down Andor and Axis. And Partagas actually supports her in this endeavor and says that she has managed to convince him, which is pretty awesome considering before he was doubting her. And then we get this sequence where Andor and these prisoners get dropped off, and we find out this is a factory facility. And the speech here from the prison, I call it a prison, it is what it is. The guards who are there, the speech that this guy gives is absolutely brutal. The length of your stay has been predetermined. The quality of that time is going to be up to you. Some of you might be wondering how it is we're standing in front of you without any weapons. That's a potent question. Hopefully, one you won't need to have answered very often. And then he clicks this device, and they all get rendered like paralyzed down to the floor and in agony. And he tells them that was level 1 of 3. Don't push me. You don't want to have this happen to you again. Which makes me wonder, is this like an audio thing and they've got blockers? Or, they said something about tungsteel floor. So I don't know if they have bracelets. I didn't really catch that, and I may need more time to understand what was going on with that. Meanwhile, we're back to Cyril, who's reading the report. Dedra comes in. She wants to shuffle him off, and he makes a play here. He gives this desperate speech about how he did deserve what happened to him. He was very good at his job, but by being aggressive, he moved too quickly, and he admits that. But he also reads her perfectly and says, "You obviously need Andor. I could be a valuable asset." And she brushes him off, says, "Raise the alarm one more time, and it won't be me you answer to." So I wonder what they're gonna do with Cyril, because I don't want them to shuffle him off, because he obviously this obsession has to come back into play at some point later in the episode. It has to. Meanwhile, we see Andor analyzing everything as he's coming in. The whole prison entry process, the guards and their protocol, and then he's out on the floor with the other prisoners. They're on a factory floor, and then the guy who starts speaking, I'm like, is that who I think it is? Is that who I think it is? And then his face gets on screen. It's Andy frickin' Serkis, dude. Like they got Andy Serkis to come in and do a spot in this show, which this just like cranked everything up to 11 for me because I love Andy Serkis. He gives great performances no matter what he's doing, and he's the floor manager here, and he lets him know that, hey man, they only come back. Those guards only come down here when they're bringing new folks or taking dead folks out of here. So, Keith Gergo, you're mine now. I got 200 days left on my sentence, then I'm out of here. So don't screw it up. Don't ever slow up my line. And Andor's observing all of this as they build whatever it is that they're building. I'm assuming maybe we'll find out later what they're building, but it's parts for something. We're back to Mon Mothma and her husband. Hubby's making fun of her for campaigning like the Empire against the Emperor. Her friend is there, the one who she wants to sit up as the banking guy in charge of the new charity. He's telling her that they're having problems setting things up because of these new regulations that are in place, because of the oversight committees. And, she's like, well, what about the money I've already moved? And he's like, how much? She says 400,000. He's like, oh, wow. That's going to be fun to explain away. Then we're back to Andor, and he sees another guy. They're in a line after the work shift going back to the sleep chambers. And there's different tubes carrying these guys in and out, and there's lots of tubes. But Andor sees one of the guys doing sign language through the window to another guy in another tube. Very curious, and I'm wondering if this is going to come into play later on. Then we're back to Coruscant. Mon Mothma's listening to other senators about this new legislation for public order. And somebody says, if you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear. Oh my God, where have I heard that before? Mon Mothma says, I'm fearing your definition of wrong. So, very interesting political statements being made here. Then we're back to the factory, and now it's been 30 days. It's been a month here. No, hang on, that was later. I got sidetracked with my own notes. Back to the factory. We're meeting the prison cell. Spoiler alert, 30 days. We're learning everything about the prison cell. The floor goes hot after 7 seconds. You'll get fried and killed. The timer over there shows how many days you've got left. There's a lot of numbers on there. They doubled everyone's numbers last month, and everyone wants to know about this public order decree that happened after the rebel activity. There's rumors of somebody getting slaughtered at a garrison, which never happened. Some guy tells him, don't ever look at the number. The manager says, hope you don't walk in your sleep because you'll get fried on the floor. Back to Mon Mothma's party. They're talking about having been married, her and her husband, since they were both 15. She's been a senator since 16. Andor's back in his cell, and this is where we get the 30 days left. Sorry, my eyes wandered down my show notes here. So he's been here 30 days now. They're going through decontamination onto the factory floor. They're doing assembly. The pen gets jammed. Is the old man on their team going to screw things up for him? I feel like this is Squid Games in space. um, Back to Ferrix now, the old home planet, and we see Andor's old drinking buddy walking around frowning at all the Imperials. And we see Bix talking to his mother. His mother appears to be sick with something. And turns out she was out at the old hotel, obsessed with the troopers' activity and trying to see if the tunnel under the hotel is still open because she basically wants to try to help the rebels sneak in and take them by surprise. And they're talking about it outside. Bix and Andor's sort of found about, the old lady can't be here much longer because she's going to get herself into trouble, and we don't want to see that happen. And while this is all going on, we get a glimpse of Vel and Sintra, who are spying. They're here tracking down Andor. Vel wants them to stay together, but Sintra wants to wait alone on the planet. Gives a speech about how it's a fight to the death. The Empire's never going to take a break. Back to Bix. She wants to use the comm. Back in the back, her boss isn't so sure. They've been trying to lay low since the Imperial presence. She's like, it's urgent because she's trying to contact Luthen. We're back on Coruscant, and Luthen's wanting to answer, but his assistant is like, no, we need to shut it all down. you're slipping. He's like, I'm not slipping. I've just been in hiding for too long. It's time to be active. And then he agrees to shut down the connection to wash themselves clean of everything on Ferrix. So Vel is now looking desperate. Um, you know, back to the planet. Vel's looking desperate, getting shuffled off the planet. Fades to Cinta, who's is it Cinta or Cintra, who's looking out the window, um, keeping an eye on the old lady, basically, just keeping a spy on. And then we've got Luthen out on a ship going somewhere. I'm not sure where yet. Bix wakes up. Something's happening. They run outside. Everyone's gathered. Apparently, they took someone's dad to the hotel last night and it never came back. Stormtroopers are all over the place. They're looking at a chart and they see Bix and they're like, "We know you. You're a fugitive. Get her!" And she takes off on the run. Um, and now we're back to Luthen's ship, and he's going to a planet called Segra Milo, and he meets Saw Gerrera. So we had another major cameo in this episode, in that we've got Saw Gerrera here, and there's a sequence of basically he's got a bunch of parts that he wants to sell Saw, but in exchange, he wants Saw to meet with this guy who's been probing an Imperial power station and may have a way in. There may be a weakness. Saw just wants to pay for the parts, and Luthen's like, no, meet this guy. I'll give him to you for free. And Saw's like, I work alone. And Luthen says, that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to change. We need to fight together because we need the Empire angry, coming down hard, because pressure breeds rebellion. And Saw doesn't want to have anything to do with this because he's against the Separatists, because he views them as cultists. At the end of the day, he's like, no sale today, Luthen, and they part ways. Next scene is they got Bix, and we see Dedra in an interrogation room with her boss, the guy they captured the night before, and the guy's near death, but she wants Bix to see him as they come into the room, and she does the whole, "Oh, hurry up and get him out of here. We don't, how would you let him see? How could you let Bix see this? And then she says to Bix, "Welcome to the, welcome," and they see the chair, and then we're back to the factory, and then fade to black. So this episode, I feel, was all about ramping up the feelings of desperation by all parties. Factory, Bix, Andor's mom, Luthen to some degree saw everyone's feeling pressure. Even Mon Mothma is starting to feel pressure because of the money, not being able to move it around, not being able to get the charity opened up, and everything else. And then there's, above all, is this decree that's coming down from from the Emperor, which is this public order decree, which gives the Empire broad, sweeping powers of, see something, say something. If anyone does anything wrong, well, who defines what's wrong? So this is the beginning of that tightening of the screw, and this is what Luthen wants ultimately, because he's trying to get the Empire angry enough to crush the people, to take those embers of those little sparks of rebellion and fan those into an open flame. So it's all coming together. We're episode 8 now. There's 4 more episodes to go, and I can't wait. This show has just been getting better and better as time goes on. So for me, again, I can't give it a higher score than I've already given previous episodes. So 10 out of 10 again. I've not found anything to complain about with this show. I'm loving all of it. If you do too, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get more of me talking about Star Wars Andor. Don't forget, I do a bunch of other shows. I'm also going to be doing Willow when it comes up at the end of November. We're doing House of the Dragon. We're doing Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, all sorts of other stuff. So tune in for all that stuff. Support the channel if you can. It's super simple with memberships down there. You can also do a one-off in the form of a super thanks. And of course, thanks to all of these people for making it happen. Hopefully, I'll see everybody in the next episode. May the force be with you, everyone. Cheers.